Hello, friends. Welcome back to For the Plot. The sun is shining. Everything is great, except that I have a very stupid fucking injury in my back. As I'm sure you're aware from what I was telling you over the past week, 2 weeks, whatever, I can't remember when I last actually recorded. I had this crazy week where I was in Copenhagen. I was back for a day. I had a show. And then I was going away to Prague the next day. On the morning that I had the show, I went to the gym. I did my training, everything was fine. And then at some point, I basically lay back onto a bench in a really weird position. And the corner of the bench went in between these little serrated parts of this muscle in your back called your serratus anterior. And yeah, I basically have strained my back muscle. So I did that on the morning that I had the show. I managed to put this deep heat cream, this menthol thing on it, and I took some painkillers and I got through the show just fine, but it's still giving me jib and it's so frustrating because I'm really moving like an old person and I'm very aware of it. But other than that, everything is good. So before I tell you about the past week, at the end of the last episode, the lore that I was sharing were these messages, message exchanges between people and their drug dealers. And there was an absolutely genius one that I forgot to include, and I just have to share it with you because I think it's maybe one of my favorite ones of all time. The person writes to their dealer, "Know anyone I can get any green off?" The dealer replies, "Everyone's off today. It's Eid lol." The guy replies, "Oh shit, Eid Mubarak, my G." The dealer says, "Respect, bro." Yeah, I just wanted to share that one. I thought it was a very funny and worthwhile one to share. So last week was fucking mental. We actually had a house party in our apartment, and it was a really fun night. A friend of ours basically came around and DJ'd. It was very extra. He arrived, set up decks. We made a lineup. I don't know, really good vibes. We have a very, very nice group of friends and in our friendship circles. And when these different friendship groups come together, I don't know, it's just really good energy. So there was a lot of dancing, good conversation. I was traveling to Copenhagen the next day, and my plan was basically to go first thing in the morning. So my train was booked 5:30 a.m. The theory was, okay, if I just don't go to sleep after the party, I can go straight to the train and I can sleep on the train. So it got to about 4:30 and I packed all of my stuff up, got ready, I went to the train station, super smooth. Train comes in, I take the train from Berlin to Hamburg, take the train then from Hamburg to, I don't know where it was 4 stops outside of Hamburg, this random place, maybe Pinneberg, something like this, where I then was going to take the train from there to Copenhagen. And when I got to this Pinneberg place, I think this is the name of the place, the train to Copenhagen didn't arrive when it was supposed to. And for me, I'm very used to this. Trains in Germany are always late, but I was on the platform with 100 disgruntled Danes who were all like, where the fuck's the train? Then they made an announcement. The train that you're supposed to take to Copenhagen unfortunately has a technical fault, so we're sending a replacement train. So they sent this replacement train and it arrived actually only 10 minutes delayed, but it was the dustiest, crustiest old regional train you could possibly imagine. It was a train that had been plucked out of the 60s and dropped on the track. So we got onto this train, and bearing in mind, I thought I was going to be on this really nice, intercity, comfortable, lots of leg room, cushion situation where I could sleep. And instead, it was rickety and loud and rattling, and nobody had reserved seats because there were no numbers on the seats. So yeah, I just had to set up camp. And then I was too, I don't know, overstimulated or something to go to sleep. So I just stayed awake. I arrived to Copenhagen and I went to the hotel that I was staying in. I checked in, and then I basically had to go straight to this conference that I was going to. And actually, I want to tell you all about the conference. It was incredible. So it's a program called Rebuild, and it's a group of technologists, people building organizations, people building software, policymakers, investors, just generally people who care about the future of European tech. And the idea is to spend 12 months together trying to reshape the future of the European tech ecosystem and reduce our reliance on US tech and big tech, and just think a little bit about what the future of platforms and social platforms in Europe look like. Really inspiring shit, really incredible people there. And the program started on Sunday afternoon and was running through Monday until Tuesday afternoon. So I arrived to the hotel, like at this point, fairly sleep deprived and starting to feel a bit delirious, shall we say. Checked in, hopped on a Lime bike and cycled to the venue where the conference was taking place. And I arrived, checked in, they gave me my name tag, and I was just looking around the room. There was like 200 people there, and I just started to feel like trippy. Like the lack of sleep was setting in, because the day before the party I'd obviously gotten up at like 5:30 or something to train and then have this crazy full day and then the party, and then I didn't sleep and then took the train. And I was not really in the mood for networking and talking to people. But in any case, kind of like threw myself into it as much as I could, but the whole thing started to feel like a fever dream. So we arrived, there was this keynote, the welcome, everything felt very inspirational and actually very good energy. And then they decided to do a parade of the participants. So basically everyone that was there in attendance was put into a group, and then the groups were kind of called up onto stage one by one, and then you would walk across the stage and say your name, and in my case, like what I was building or working on. Other people were saying where they were from. So yeah, they called up, I was in the first group, and they called our groups up, and they were playing they were playing that little riff from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which they use for Eurovision. It's like do 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 do. But they weren't playing any other part of this piece of music. It was just that on a loop for I'm not exaggerating, it must have been at least 30 minutes it took for every single participant to come up in their group, get on the stage, say their name, what they were doing, where they were from. And I remember going to sit back down, and I was like, this feels so surreal. And it's not just because I'm sleep deprived. I was sitting in between these two guys, and one of them turned to me and introduced himself, and he said, yeah, hey, I'm Meds. And I was like, Meds? I've never heard that name before. Really interesting. He said, yeah, it's a very common Danish name. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then the guy next to me also turned to introduce himself, and he was like, yeah, nice to meet you. I'm from Copenhagen. My name is Meds. I was like, what the fuck? Why am I sitting in between these two people called Meds? This is insane. I've never met anyone else called Meds in my entire life, and now I'm between. I'm in a like Meds sandwich. So they were both part of my group. And then the next group had basically gone up already, and the first guy to introduce himself was also called fucking Meds. And it's spelled like Mads, M-A-D-S. And this is when I really started to feel quite, let's say, sleep deprived or delirious. So they did this big parade thing. There were another couple of speeches, and then we had a dinner all together. It was kind of like the only way I can describe it is it felt like we were going to some sort of Viking feast. We went upstairs into this, like upstairs in the venue, there was a cafe and a kitchen, and they had these long tables, like really, really long tables. Now, I fucking love a long table, but the long tables were so long that I think there was maybe like 60 people on each long table. And it was one of these very noisy environments where you couldn't really talk to anyone properly. Only the people opposite you or directly next to you, because the acoustics were crazy. But yeah, I don't know. So I made it through this dinner. I took a Lime bike back to the hotel, and I was sort of sitting, you know, when you like sit on the edge of the bed and you just stare at the wall and like semi-disassociate. I basically did that for half an hour, and then I went to sleep. And I woke up the next morning feeling really fresh. It was great. I do want to just take a little moment to tell you a little bit more about the conference, about the program Rebuild, because it's fascinating. So you may or may not know, I've been working in tech effectively for 10 years. I've always had the privilege of working at this intersection of technology and impact. So either in social impact or climate impact or environmental impact. And right now I'm working for a queer travel platform, and I'm also working on a regenerative agriculture platform. And so I was there kind of on behalf of the queer travel platform. And The participants of this conference, like I said, they were like people building stuff, but also policymakers, investors, people that have like built huge organizations or people that are really shaping technology. And there were 60 platforms, shall we say, represented there. So things like our platform, but then there were also a lot of these kind of community-based platforms. There was a really cool platform called 27 Crags, which is like a rock climbing app where you can like add maps for bouldering and rock climbing. There was a new dating app called Tete a Tete, where basically you put out the date that you want to go on and then people can decide whether they want to join you on that date or not. So it's like date first rather than person first. And then there was a company called Quest Drop, who basically like do these outside real life games, sending you on quests. So this is the kind of like space that we're moving in, and I met so many fucking inspiring and cool people. And one of the things that came out of it was this letter, which was basically urging people to think of alternatives to big tech. So the whole goal of Rebuild is basically how can we all at once shift away from our reliance on big tech and US technology. And there's a bunch of different stuff that needs to happen in order for that to be possible. Obviously, we need new platforms, different forms of social media or different ways to connect with our community. We also need the technical infrastructure. And then in Europe, we also need the investment. Like, we just don't have as much money being pumped into technology as you have in America. And yeah, so the whole program was basically presentations from the people building platforms. There were panels, and then there were these kind of work streams working on tangible outcomes from the conference. So what did also come out of it, there was this letter, like I said, but there was also a design framework and building principles. And there were some prototypes of cool platforms that people could build or should work on. There was a really nice one that was basically like I can't remember what the prototype was called. But when you and your friends all come together, you can all like join this, let's say in the app, you basically say, yep, we're all together. And then what that does is it like puts your phone on flight mode effectively for the amount of time that you say that you want to spend together, which I really like. As I've mentioned to you before, I do these kind of phone-free Sundays. And it's this little circuit breaker from being obsessed with your phone or being like addicted to the dopamine that you get from it. So there were lots of really, really, really cool things that came out of this program. And yeah, I met so many interesting people, and it just really sort of relit a bit of a fire in me. I used to spend a lot of time thinking about the future of technology, how we could make it more ethical, how we could reduce its negative impact on society. I used to think about broader systems that we're part of and how we participate in those or don't participate in those. And I could talk at length about the need for us to find different ways of connecting where technology is just enabling real life connection rather than being the place where connection happens. So yeah, I feel like I got a little bit of my spark back on those kind of topics. And what's really cool is it's a 3-part program. So the next part of the program is in Helsinki at the end of August. And for sure I am going to go. And as you know, I only really travel by train. So I already started planning my route, and it's going to be like an epic tour through the Baltics. I think I'll stop off in Poland and Lithuania, in Riga and Latvia, and then spend a bit of time in Tallinn before taking the ferry across to Helsinki. So I'm really looking forward to that, both the trip and then also the next part of the program to see where we can get to. When I came back from Copenhagen, I took the train back and I basically went straight to rehearsal for a show with Magic Dyke. I mentioned in a previous episode, Magic Dyke is a queer stripping group. We basically do this kind of masculine style stripping for queer audiences. And I was very, very excited about the show because the whole concept was for our immunocompromised and disabled community. So we were all tested for COVID. We were all fully masked for the entire duration of the show, including the performances. Everyone that was coming to the performance was testing beforehand and then wearing masks when they came in. And we had a ramp up to the stage, because typically what we do in our shows, we have these performances and we take people out of the crowd for a lap dance on stage. So it was really cool that we had this ramp, so people with wheelchairs or mobility aids could come up onto the stage and also receive lap dances. And I just had such a good time. Like, it was such a fun show to do, but also really wholesome and cute and full of care and full of tenderness and also so hot and spicy. And yeah, if you haven't come to one of our shows and you're based in Berlin, you absolutely have to at some point because it's so difficult to explain the energy in the show. Like, it's really hot, it's really, really sexual and sensual. But it's also like quite a political space and very wholesome and very nourishing as well. So the rehearsal for that, I felt nice and prepared afterwards. Like I said, on Thursday morning, I went to the gym, completely fucked up my back, but it was fine. The actual show itself was phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I thought we did an amazing, like, we put on an amazing show, great performances. Everyone that we spoke to afterwards felt really seen and held and taken care of. So this is more just like a little pat on the back, not to myself, right, but to the rest of the team for like spearheading doing shows like this. And I would really love to see more inclusive shows and performance spaces in Berlin, but also beyond. I have to say though, the context switch from being at this conference talking about like the future of the European tech ecosystem to then going to like pouring water over myself on stage before taking my top off was quite an intense switch. But hey, it keeps life interesting. Story time this week is about probably my most, let's say, grueling train journey I ever took. So I told you when I was changing to the train to go to Copenhagen, on the way there, they replaced the train with this kind of old regional train. I don't often travel on the regional routes between cities when I'm traveling. Usually I'm taking like a high speed, or as high speed as the train can get, from A to B. Usually they're bigger trains, more comfortable. Because, I mean, it already takes so long to travel by train. I'm not in the mood to take fucking regional detours. However, I am very used to trains being delayed. There was maybe 2 or 3 years. I think it was just after, like, we came out of the lockdowns. So after we came out the COVID lockdowns, like, everyone needed 2 years or something to get their shit back together on train travel. And so there were 2 years where basically I didn't pay full price for traveling, because what is a nice thing is most of the train companies have this like delay repay compensation situation. Albeit you usually have to be like 1 hour or more delayed, but quite often I was more than 1 hour, like sometimes even 2, 3, 4 hours delayed. The trip I want to tell you about was a trip to Amsterdam, from Berlin to Amsterdam, which usually with a direct train is 6.5 hours. So I arrived to Berlin Central Station to take my train to Amsterdam, and I usually travel very early in the morning because this somehow helps you avoid disruption. So my train was leaving at 6:40 a.m. I arrived to the station about 6:20, went to the platform, was waiting on the platform, and 6:40 came. The train is still showing on the screen, but the train doesn't arrive, and it says there's going to be a 5-minute delay. And this is when my heart already started to sink, because when they don't tell you the exact time that the train is coming, and they just say it's probably going to be 5 minutes delayed, this 5-minute delay basically just like tops up every 5 minutes. So they say, oh, it's going to be a 5-minute delay. 5 minutes later, oh, it's probably going to be a 5-minute delay. And this happens, I think, typically 4 or 5 times. And then they say it's like an undefined delay. So you don't know how delayed it's going to be. So I was waiting on this platform and ended up waiting there for, I think, 55 minutes or something, to the point where there was another train leaving from Berlin to Amsterdam like 20 minutes later than that. And they made an announcement and they explained, okay, you can all go and take this train. Obviously, your train reservations are not going to be valid, but you can take the train. So me and the like 200 people on the platform or whatever the fuck, we go to the other platform. We get on this train that's going to Amsterdam. There are no seats. The train was already like fully booked. So I just took my little seat, sitting down in between the carriages, got my Sudoku out, and off we go. So the train leaves. This is a good thing. The train is actually leaving from Berlin to Amsterdam. We travel maybe like, I don't know, an hour and a half. And then the train just stops. And they're like, sorry, there's a technical fault with the train. It's not going to be proceeding to Amsterdam. So what then happens is the train basically like grinded into the next station. We all get off and we're all waiting on the platform. And there's like a group of, let's say maybe like early 20-year-olds near me who are obviously interrailing. None of them speak German. And one important thing that you need to know about traveling by train in Germany, they don't really make announcements in any language apart from German. It's like deeply xenophobic. Anyway, so they make this announcement. Oh, the train to Amsterdam is not going to go further from here. However, you can take this train to Duisburg, and then from there you can take the train directly to Amsterdam. So I start to go, and then all of these like 20-year-olds with their backpacks are looking really stressed. And I explained to them, I'm like, oh, actually, we all need to go to platform 4. We're going to take the train from there to this place, Duisburg, and then from Duisburg, where we can go directly to Amsterdam. They're like, okay, cool, we're going to follow you. So now it's me and this group of like 8 20-year-old backpackers. We go to the platform, we get on the train, and we go to Duisburg. When I get on the train, I sit down, and a guy comes and sits down next to me. And he, at some point, started talking to me. His name was Jesse. He was American, and he worked in patenting and copywriting for hardware. So basically, he was responsible for making sure that documentation or like physical parts of machinery were patented correctly. It's like such a random fucking specific job, but whatever. And he was really cute. He had like a daughter and a wife, and we were like, okay, we're train buddies now. We're going to go to Duisburg together, and then we're going to travel to Amsterdam. So the train arrives to Duisburg. We get off. We go to the platform where the Amsterdam train is going to come. And then I'm pretty sure it was like happening whilst we were on the train, but I sort of noticed that it was like the worst fucking weather I've ever seen in my entire life. The sky was black. There was like torrential rain outside of the station, and I could start to hear thunder. And I was like, oh, this is not a good sign. I mean, this is like a very native English, probably British schooling specific thing, but we learned about this concept in literature, pathetic fallacy, which is where the weather reflects the mood of what's happening in the story or the plot, and it's like a foreshadowing of what's to come. So I was like, oh, classic pathetic fallacy. Thunderstorm whilst we're waiting for the train. And then the screen shows that the train that we were planning to get to Amsterdam has been cancelled. I'm like, okay. And they make an announcement and they say, the train to Amsterdam has been cancelled. The direct line is not running, but you can take this regional route. You can take a regional train from here to Hengelo, I think, and then change at Hengelo, and then you go to Amsterdam from there. I was like, right, great. So me, Jesse, I go and grab my 8 20-year-old backpackers, and we go to the platform to take the regional train to Hengelo. The regional train comes, and I'm like, excellent, another good sign. We get on this regional train to Hengelo, and it goes 2 stops, and then there's like a huge cracking noise, like a, and all of the electricity goes off in the train. All the lights go off. The train like shudders to a halt, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Me and Jesse are looking at each other like, what's going on? They made an announcement on the train. We're really sorry to inform you. The train was struck by lightning. And we can't proceed any further. We're waiting for someone to bring the emergency generator from a main station nearby. We will basically like get the generator into the train so that we'll have power, and then we will go back to the last stop that we were at. So okay, right. At this point, you're just a bit like, Jesus, take the wheel. So we're waiting in the train for probably about half an hour. Then the lights come back on and the train travels back the way that we came to some random little stop. So we all get off at this station and it's torrential rain, like really torrential rain. Now, conveniently, Jesse had bought a kind of like rainbow umbrella for his daughter before he left because he saw it and he thought it was really cute. So we were like standing under this tiny rainbow umbrella together. Trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do now? What's the action plan? So we're at this random little regional stop and there's no announcement or anything. And we're waiting there for like 35 minutes, me and Jessie tucked under this like tiny little umbrella. By this point, I think we're now like 6 hours delayed, something like that. And I mean, we've been on the go for, so it's delayed by 6 hours, but like we've been on the go for 10 hours. It was close to like 4:30 p.m., bearing in mind our train was supposed to be at 6:40. And eventually a train comes and we get on the train and it goes back to Duisburg. So we go back to Duisburg. It's showing on the platform that there's a train coming to Amsterdam. I'm still feeling like cautiously optimistic, quite hopeful. The train was supposed to come 45 minutes later. It didn't come. And then it showed 5 minutes delay, 5 minutes delay, 5 minutes delay. I was like, for fuck's sake, this train isn't coming. And then it showed cancelled. So we eventually went down to the information and ticket office and I was asking, okay, what can we do? Because we're trying to get to Amsterdam. They were like, maybe you could go to Oldenburg and you can take a train from there. I think the trains are still running from there. So we're like, okay, we go to the platform, we take the train to Oldenburg. We arrive there. There's an Amsterdam train showing on the platform. I'm still feeling optimistic. By this point, by the way, it's also 7:30 p.m. 7:30 p.m. So 13 hours of travel later. The train is showing and then the train is showing is cancelled. Like, fuck, okay. So go down to the ticket office in Oldenburg and I say, okay, the train is showing is cancelled. They're like, oh yeah, there are no trains leaving from Germany to the Netherlands because there's such a bad storm that all of the tracks are covered with trees and no trains can pass. So it's going to be tomorrow that you can go. I'm like, okay. Right. So then we take basically this like voucher thing from them and we go to a hotel and we stayed in a hotel for the night in Oldenburg. Woke up in the morning, went to the train station. There were still no trains going to Amsterdam, but the regional trains were running. So took the regional train to Amsterdam. Well, to Hengelo and then to Amsterdam from there. And I arrived in Amsterdam, I think at like 10 a.m. So the whole thing took like 26, 27 hours to get to Amsterdam, which is usually a 6.5 hour journey. This week's lore I'm going to keep a little bit short just to give you some context for some stories that are going to come in the future. This Rebuild conference that I was at reminded me so much of being at a European Youth Parliament session. So European Youth Parliament is basically a youth organisation bringing together people across Europe to talk about European politics effectively. And I spent several years involved with this organisation. So typically a European Youth Parliament session, you will have a bunch of different topics. And there are these kind of like model versions of European committees, European parliamentary committees. So, for example, like Committee on Human Rights, Committee on Agriculture. You're given a topic and you have to develop a resolution or legislation around that topic. And the way that the whole conference, if you like, or the session works, there are delegates, so people that are coming up with the new policies and legislation. There are chairs who are kind of facilitating the discussions with these delegates. There's an organising team who have basically organised everything. And then there's a media team who are taking photos, making videos, like capturing the session effectively. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these sessions that happen across Europe every year on a regional level, on a national level, and on an international level. And what's so fucking crazy to me about this whole organisation and all of the things that we did, so I was a delegate when I was 16 and 17, and then I was basically like organising and as an official from 18 until 22. So we were like 18, 19, 20 years old and organising these international conferences for like 200 to 400 people in random cities where you had to like fundraise, you had to do a budget, you had to organize travel, you had to organize venues, the program, the academic program, speakers, everything. Like this was just done by effectively kids for other kids. And the reason that Rebuild reminded me of it a little bit was, first off, there was this like borderline cringe European spirit. Everyone was like very pro-Europe, but it comes across in like quite a cringe way sometimes. So at Rebuild, for example, every now and then someone would randomly just shout like, "Go Europe!" Or the other things that we did that reminded me so much of EYP, we sang quite a lot. So like each day we were singing. So they gave out lyrics to a song and then everyone sang it together. On the first day we sang the Beatles, this I get by with a little help from my friends. And then the next day we sang Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. But it's just like, it reminded me so much of some of the stuff that we used to do at European Youth Parliament. So yeah, the main similarities there, like I said, very pro-Europe and borderline cringe. And this is lower because it really did occupy quite a lot of my life for many years. I had the privilege to travel to so many different places in Europe as a result of this. I met people from all over the place, and some of my closest friends that I still have now, I met through European Youth Parliament. When I stepped down from European Youth Parliament and Brexit kicked in, I was so disillusioned with politics and political systems and everything. But yeah, this is just a little teaser and context that you will need for some stories that are coming in the future. For now, this is actually all I have time to record today. I will leave it there. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Please share it with a friend that you think might like it, rate it, and I will see you next time.